Welcome to Let's Talk Antigonish, the podcast where we sit down with neighbors, experts, and friends to explore the stories, the questions, and the big little issues that shape life in our town, one conversation at a time. Today we're talking with local musician Heather MacIsaac about her JUNO-Nominated album, The Moon's Daughter. She's going to tell us all about the album, her musical journey, and the traditional music scene here in Antigonish. That tune you hear in the background, that's one of Heather's. It's called Big Barn, Little Farm. Hello everyone and welcome to Let's Talk Antigonish. It's
Anuj
and Justin, your co-hosts.
Once
again. Yeah, can't get rid of us.
Yeah.
And today we are talking about...
with a celebrity.
It's a celebration of a specific individual human being who is in the studio with us, but also the music scene in this town. So it's a celebration of two things. But first, let's talk to the person. Why am I being so cagey about who we have in the studio? It's Heather MacIsaac, a pharmacist.
Yes.
But also a JUNO-Nominated writer and composer of traditional music.
Believe it or not, yes.
I believe it entirely. So,
Wow.
We're here to talk about your album, which was JUNO-Nominated, and you and your whole history of music. But also, hopefully, you can speak a little more about the traditional music scene here in town. So, first of all, Anuj, not everybody knows what trad music is, including you.
Yes, agreed.
Okay, so ask your questions from a place of complete and total ignorance.
Yeah. Please introduce to those of us who are uninitiated to this music scene in Antigonish. Tell us, what's happening in Antigonish and your work.
Well, when it comes to trad music, Antigonish has a large quantity of different people from different ethnic and ancestral backgrounds. My family came in the 1840s straight from Scotland. There's a large population of Dutch. There's a large population of French. We obviously have the First Nations, and even people that came up after the Revolutionary War. So there's a lot of, and today even more cultures, but going far back, like you have people whose families have been there here, a few hundred years at least, and they brought their cultures with them. And the culture that I come from is ancestry of Scottish Highland people that came here. And so a lot of the tunes that, or melodies that people play here on, especially fiddle or bagpipes, or the songs that have been maintained here, are also found where our ancestors came from. So in the past 100 years, there's been a lot more of people being able to obviously have links, either physically by visiting Scotland and meeting the people that have a similar cultural background to them, and realizing that things are very similar on both sides, but also with like radio, things like television, and then now with the internet, it's just huge. So seeing that things that were once together have evolved in different ways on other sides of the Atlantic has really started to be embraced and integrated into really a global scene on different types of traditional music.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, this is a great introduction to me.
Exactly.
Yeah,
so traditional music in that sense, I guess, would be anything being played from a variety of different cultures. So it doesn't just mean a
So what
Scottish
are the
Irish.
names you are giving it to?
Traditional music is anything that comes from the background of folk music of your people.
Yeah.
So here,
Right.
the main thing that people think of when they think of trad music is it's kind of taken over in this area, Celtic, so Irish, Scottish, but there's a very strong French music.
Yep.
I'm not sure if I know much about the Dutch music, but
I'm afraid they don't have much in the way of...
No.
Listen, I know Dutch people pretty well, and they will all agree with me that there's not much going on in that department.
So the word trad is traditional.
Traditional.
Now I get it.
Traditional, folk, traditional.
And so
it'll
have
comes
us-
of the people.
Yeah, and there's a lineup of instruments you associate with trad music in this part of the world. So what would
Exactly.
those be? Because you play like most of them, I feel like.
I grew up playing some classical, but really I focus on traditional music. So for my culture, a lot of different types of bagpipes, harp. I have one, but I'm not very good at it yet. Fiddle, obviously. Also flute or whistle. Different types of drums like bodhran. But really like instruments that aren't as modernized as you think. Like, for example, the flute or whistles that I play, they don't have keys all over them. They just are simple, like
Holes in a stick.
simple holes in a stick. Exactly,
right.
holes in a stick. And so you're limited in the keys that you can play in, and some of the keys that you do play in aren't in a strict major minor scale. They're more modal. And you see that in a lot of different folk instruments. They may not fit into the modern scale, or they may not be tuned to modern ideas of what pitch should be at A is 440. So those are the ones that I also, an accordion tends to be, it's more of a modern instrument, but it's kind of been adopted into the folk music and trad scene.
What we will have in India,
Yeah.
harmonium.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I love a good harmonium. Yeah.
Okay.
There's some very good Celtic musicians that use harmonium.
There you go.
There's a famous tune called Tune for a Found Harmonium on a very famous Irish band's album from the 1970s, but I won't go that
Okay.
into crazy.
But so in this area, then you have, because of there's the Scottish, Irish people, Acadian people here
Yeah.
as well, other cultures obviously, but
Yeah.
that those people are responsible, I think, for what people recognize in Cape Breton and here as a kind of the kitchen ceilidh sort
Exactly.
of culture. So can
Exactly.
you, because you're not into this so much, Anuj. I am. Like, I go to places where I've seen Heather pop up
Yep.
and a bunch of randos get around in a living room and play a bunch of songs that are tunes that they all
Fantastic.
know.
Yep.
So can you explain a bit about that culture? How does that work in this town in Antigonish?
In this town, the whole pop up in public and have like a tune session in like a pub has been more just within the past 15 years. There's a bit more of a formalized thing if it was done in public previously, like where you'd have somebody hired to play a ceilidh for people to dance to. It was actually Susie Murphy, who some of you may know, that runs Big Barn Little Farm with her husband, who is originally from Ireland. And she actually met him when she was in Ireland studying farming, and she got involved with the Irish session culture while she was over there, which people would come together in like pubs or restaurants, and anybody was welcome to play and just pop in, and they would play tunes that were common to most people in their culture. And when Susie's sister Rose opened a pub here in town, and they kind of tried to make it more like of an Irish or a UK based style pub to bring ambiance to that, they got Susie to start having an Irish session there. So Susie had been into this scene there and knew the types of etiquette that were involved and how it worked. So there was a few people that she invited to come to this, and we would start to come and get to learn how this worked. So that was a newer thing. And we were focusing more on Irish music, but we tried to get people who were more involved with the Cape Breton or kind of more a Scottish music scene to come. And at first, some of them weren't too into it because it was a little bit different than what they were used to, because it's different style tunes. But we kind of embraced it and encouraged any different type of tunes to be played, any type of songs to be played. So that it's almost like it's more of a social thing rather than a performance.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I really love
That's a very
that.
interesting distinction.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because actually, but when we look at what happened with like the Scottish settlers as well, and people from the Highlands, the people that I come from, they did that, but it wasn't in public houses or pubs. It was in their homes. So when you would have people over, ceilidh in Gaelic simply means a visit. That's what it means. We're having people over for a ceilidh. We're having a house party. Okay. And a lot of times people may not have had a lot of food or a lot of things to offer. But if you were able to offer a song, again, we're talking about times before radios and recorded music, you were a valued person if you were a musician. I remember stories about my grandparents, any random musician that was in town for the Highland Games, they were brought home, okay? Because a musician was an exciting thing to have staying with you because they were an entertainer.
And they probably brought in new tunes as well.
Exactly. So it was a way to share your art and share your culture all together and have a celebration of that. And it was, families bringing together, and a lot of the songs brought a lot of the history of their culture and their families. So that's the type of thing that in all cultures is brought together. So yes, in the last 15 years, we've started having more of these like Irish style, I'll call them the Irish style sessions where it's in a public thing. But previous to that, you'd have more in this area, people in their homes having personal ceilidhs where families and friends would come together and party. Okay.
Yeah.
And the party involved music, because you can get through with a good night, a long, dark night, especially during the winter with a lot of good people. Maybe one person had a fiddle and they passed it around.
Yeah.
Not everybody had one.
So tell us then your journey, because you come from a tradition of people playing at home. Then you started playing in the Irish session for a while, introducing yourself to the people. And then at some point, you had been writing tunes as well. And at some point, you decided to put all of the things you'd written into an album, publish the album, and now it has been awarded a Juno. So that is it's interesting road from like, I did this in my living room with my family to I am now
this is amazing
world
story.
famous
Wow.
Juno-nominated. So
Well,
how did that, what brought you to do that?
Well, the funny thing is you think that my family did that. I grew up in a sports family.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
Okay, you were a hockey kid?
I didn't play, but all my brothers did, and my dad and my uncles. But my grandparents grew up in those families where they had a lot of the music.
Okay.
My particular family wasn't. I was a little bit of the odd one out. But I did grow up not only in the hockey, but the Highland dancing community. So I was exposed to hearing bagpipes and all of this tune all the time. And I did go to a lot of the events that had this type of music going on. But I did do classical music, piano growing up. But when I was about 12, I started taking piping lessons instead of clarinet lessons. And I really fell in love with piping. And at that time in Antigonish, we had a very strong school of piping, a little kids-only really pipe band that was quite good. And it really took over my life. And after a couple years of playing that, I got to be asked to play with the best band in Nova Scotia up in Halifax. My teacher ran it. So I was 15 or 16, and I got to go hang out with a bunch of adults who were doing it at an elite level. So it really took over my life for quite a long time, and competitive bagpipe. So it wasn't the type of piping that you would have sitting around at home. It was, we would go to Scotland to compete. We would go to Ontario to compete, and it was very, very technical and very exact. And I started to have a lot of anxiety with my playing.
That's written in your some of the bio written about you is that you have performance anxiety.
Yes, huge performance anxiety, and I think that comes from the competitiveness. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I got to a level where it was just very stressful, and I wasn't enjoying music as much.
No.
But I also was playing with people who were some of the best in the world and very well-known players who were well-known composers in that area of music as well. And so I didn't really think that the little tunes that I were writing were worth showing because they were so well-known and they were so well-respected, and we were playing a lot of their music. And this was just this little thing that I
see.
did.
A bit of an imposter syndrome situation.
I've learned that perhaps might be an issue I have.
Okay.
So I kind of left that world because I was kind of overwhelmed with that, and I wasn't really enjoying it. So when we started with Susie having the little sessions at the townhouse, and it was very laid back, and it was just a social thing, started to have a different relationship with music. That it was I had to unlearn to be scared of making mistakes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Those sessions, so did you feel that anxiety at those sessions?
Oh, yes. When I first started going, I had to take a little bit of anxiety medicine.
Throw an Ativan in there?
It's exactly it. I wasn't going to use it, but I did take some Ativan to even go there at first.
Yeah, sure.
Because I have social anxiety issues as well. Yeah. So even to be able to go there, and I was just too scared to play anything. And I used to teach Susie, so she took piping lessons from me. So we knew each other from far back. So she really helped me to kind of focus on no, just play, and if it's wrong, it's okay. We're learning these tunes together, and I had been so used to growing up in classical music, perfection, and learning by written music, and you don't let anyone hear it unless it's perfect. And this was learning by ear, just listening to the person playing and trying to play along, and not about things being technically horribly difficult. It was more about beautiful melodies that are simple and celebrating that.
That's interesting. So it helped you get over the perfectionism. That
Exactly.
was okay.
Exactly.
If I were to go back to where we started, this trad music or traditional music, how does, your being part of this scene, which is primarily Scottish tradition, how does that intersect or interact with other traditions like you mentioned, French or Dutch, or how does the music scene play out in Antigonish?
Well, if we talk about the larger area like Antigonish and Cape Breton counties, you have areas like Shettycamp where the fiddlers are king there, but they're Acadian fiddlers, but many of them are playing the same tunes as you have in Mabu down the road, because it's evolved into one tradition, Cape Breton fiddle style, which has tunes from the Acadians, the tunes from the Irish, tunes from, that probably came over from Newfoundland on ships back and forth. And you have Scottish settlers as well. So it kind of a lot of those tunes have all evolved into one. And so
that's interesting.
You don't have to have been a Gaelic-born Scot to be playing that kind of music for it to be your culture.
Would you call it a morphed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, you have as well, we even have, if anybody has heard of Morgan Toney, who is a fiddler from Cape Breton, who is from the First Nations. He's created what he's calling his own little genre. I think he calls it Mi'kmaltic, so like Mi'kmaq and Celtic.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
and there's a history as well of other First Nations fiddlers that played similar type of style. So it really has all kind of created all of these cultures blending together and creating this local thing.
And there was a famous African Nova Scotian fiddler, wasn't there, from Cape Breton?
I think there was too, but honestly, I can't remember his name.
I know I've seen pictures of him.
Lee Cremo, I think, was one of the First Nations ones.
Okay.
And I've heard recordings of him. It's absolutely fabulous. But it doesn't have to be so delineated into exact cultures. It's the area has created its own.
Fascinating.
And you. So you had been writing tunes for a while. I suppose before Susie's sessions, you're off writing.
Since I was 15.
Yeah, and so you're saying those are the ones you were nervous to bring to the, over to Scotland when they're doing competitive stuff.
I never did. Yeah.
But they're in the bank. So you've got this whole decades-long history.
Yeah.
And so what brought you to be, because I've heard there was a recording from John's Irish sessions that you were playing on a lot and you sang on as well.
Yeah.
And so you were kind of already on the map, I think, locally as a composer and a singer as well.
Yeah.
So what made you pull the trigger to be like, you know what, I'm just going to make an album?
So I started getting involved with the traditional music scene instead of the competitive piping scene around here. And I would go to things and nobody knew that I even played anything. And because it's very fiddle focused, they don't interact a lot with the piping community. When they didn't, it's a little bit better now. And I kind of felt a little bit not in the group. And is a bit frustrating to figure out how to do that. So I started going to more fiddle events and getting to know people. But I had all of this, and my mom actually passed away, and was thinking a lot about my relationship with music and everything that she had kind of put into taking to me all my different lessons, to all the different competitions, and all the effort she had put into getting me this musical education that I had, and I felt like I hadn't really done anything with it. Nobody even knew I played, except if they were really close friends of mine. And, around here, it was almost like a coming of age thing for fiddlers. You hear, Natalie McMaster, Ashley MacIsaac, Troy McGillivray, Kendra McGillivray, they all, when they were young, did their little debut albums. And that wasn't something that pipers did. In pipers, it was much more, you had to be like world famous, won all these bazillions of things to even consider releasing an album. But that's changing. especially over in Scotland. We've got a lot more musicians who are going towards the traditional folk music side of things and going into the more creative side of piping and recording music for music's sake rather than to celebrate that they've won some big accomplishment. And so I was like, well, why can't we do that here like the fiddlers do and that they're starting to do in Scotland? So I was talking to a friend of mine who is well-known fiddler, and he was going to help me to do that. And I was trying to figure out, okay, well, what am I going to record? And like looking at all these things, it's so hard to pick. And I'm like, well, you know what? I want to do something that's totally me. I don't want to pretend that I'm, just a fiddler, but playing it on bagpipes. I don't want to pretend that I'm doing this just to do it. I want it to be something meaningful to me. And I was like, well, I've got all these tunes that I've written that I've never really felt comfortable sharing with anybody. I want to use them.
Yeah.
And so then it had a focus.
Sure. It was your tunes.
It was my tunes. And it's also, this is quite personal, but I'll say it anyway. I had gone through a divorce and fertility issues and was now 40 with no children. And, was at the point, okay, I feel like I need something that I can leave behind to say I existed. So, because I don't have children that I'm leaving behind, but my music could be something like that. So like thinking about a lot of, authors who are remembered for their work
100%.
Or musicians that are remembered for their work. I'm like, I can do that. I can, instead of, all this music that I've written just sitting on my shelf and, someday when it sounds morbid, but I do work at the hospital. So I see people pass away quite often.
Yeah.
Think about death. But not in a bad way. I just mean, since I didn't come from a family that was hugely musical, they wouldn't have understood what this big pile of stuff was, and it might have just ended up in the garbage.
Beautiful.
So
Wow.
okay, I don't want this to just end up in the landfill someday, and all of this that stuff that was special to me. It's kind of like people who write poetry or journal. That this is what I do instead. So I wanted something that it would last. So this wasn't really meant to break myself into the music industry.
This was deeply personal.
Yeah. And since I had also been working on trying to get over my performance anxiety issues, it linked into that because I had started doing little videos online and trying to force myself to play in public. So it was a really personal journey for myself to get over that and find meaning in my music, that I had these talents for a reason and I shouldn't be wasting them.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, this is beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
I ramble.
Yeah.
No, it's good information.
Yeah. And so were you surprised to be nominated for Juno? And how does that one get nominated
Because it
for
doesn't
Juno?
sound like that was your goal.
No, it wasn't my goal at all. I wasn't even going to submit it to that because it seemed really silly to even consider sending in such a personal little project.
100%.
So for those who don't know, how do you take that journey?
So every year they open up on the Juno's website that you can submit your album. So they just get links to where they can hear it, who played on it, who wrote the stuff. So for me, I wrote everything.
Yes, if you look at the album, it's just your name for every tune.
Yeah, I wrote every tune and every song on it, and who were the other musicians on it. So for myself, I play multiple instruments and I do sing on it. And then I also, for some fancy accompaniment, I have Mac Moran, who's a very well-known Cape Breton piano player. And he also, his band, Bioluk, is very well-known, and they were actually Juno-nominated a couple of years ago as well.
Cool.
And Mary Beth Carty, who's a very well-known Antigonish musician, accompanies on
we
guitar.
hope that he'll join us. But
Yes,
probably
we were hoping to have her this morning, but she's at a gig in
She's at a
Halifax.
gig.
She couldn't make it.
Full-time musicians,
And
they
you-
got gigs.
And you recorded this up at Lakewind with Sheppy, right?
Yes, Lakewind with Mike Shepard or Sheppy up in Cape Breton. And originally it was going to be like a little done in somebody's basement, but then it kind of turned into, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right. And they had no idea who I was. And I went there and I had no idea, didn't even know there were different types of microphones.
Yeah.
Didn't know anything about the recording process. But luckily, Sheppy is an amazing sound engineer. And Lakewind is an amazing place, and Mac and Mary Beth are extremely experienced. Experienced. So they all helped me along and helped me believe that I could actually do this. So for the Juno applications, you submit it online, who played on it, who wrote everything, who's the producer. And so for me, I was the producer, which I was like, oh, I didn't even know what a producer was before this. And where it was recorded, and they didn't ask for a whole lot else, like, a little link if you had a website or whatever, and I really don't.
And so, as once you submit, is that a set of experts who look at it, or is it the public, or how does that function?
For that one, for the Junos, it's strictly based on the music for my category. For some of the more commercial categories, like, your pop performances and, recording artist of the year, those are partially picked by experts. Then partially it goes into like sales and all the fancy commercial businessy stuff. But for more niche categories like traditional music or like blues or jazz, it's strictly based on the music. And they have 10 judges that are picked each year that are considered experts in that area of music. And they have different ones every year. And they anonymously and all online go through and listen to all the applications. And they give scores. And from those 10 judges, the top 5 are considered the nominees. And then, so that's where we are now. And then it goes back to those same 10 judges, and then they score, and then it we'll find out March 20 at the end, March 28th.
Wow,
you're going to the
Junos.
Junos.
Oh, I'm going. Yeah.
Okay. And are you bringing anyone with you? You're just going to wander in by yourself?
You want to
Well,
go
I was going to say, do you need a date?
No.
Well, I thought about that, but Mike Shepard and his wife Kelly MacArthur, they were going to go anyway.
Okay, great.
And because Mike actually worked on Morgan Toney's album, and actually Morgan Toney is nominated against me in the same category.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so he's got 2 albums that are up against each other. So he's like, I'm going. And I said, well, you know what? Is you only get to go to like the actually inner gala if you're a nominee, and you get like 1 extra ticket. I'm like, you can have my extra ticket since you were so great to me.
That's cool.
So I gave him my extra ticket instead of, I made a joke that if I was on like some, romantic comedy, I'd find some cute fella to bring with me.
Or you just walk in there with an extra ticket, see who wants to be here.
So I gave it to Mike Shepard and arranged for his wife to have a ticket as well as thanks for how much guidance. And...
So we can't, as Antigonish, we can't influence that decision at all.
No.
Well, we can watch it live, right? Like on the 22nd?
Well, there's 2 sections of the Junos. The Saturday night is like when they give out the most of the awards. And I think that's broadcast live online on CBC Gem.
Okay.
And that's like a big gala night, like dinner, and that's like most of like the musicians like mine that aren't in the commercial big time show. And then Sunday night is the CBC show where they give out like, the pop star of the year and like the Justin Bieber type people. So yes, you can watch, but it's not going to be on the main CBC. It'll be on CBC Gem online.
That's
I have 2 more questions before, we... One, I think, how would you explain, the Antigonish music scene, especially the traditional, what is happening in Antigonish? Why we have some amazing musicians?
Well, there's a long history of traditional music in Antigonish. Like even way back, my grandparents, like if you know of another Antigonish connection that's also nominated in the exact same category, are Cassie and Maggie McDonald.
Cassie and Maggie.
Cassie and Maggie are against me too. They grew up in Halifax, but their father actually went to high school with my father. And my grandparents at their parties would have their grandfather playing the fiddle there. So again, long history of the trad music in the homes, and then gradually getting out into being taught in the community.
So
And
can we
again,
just
at Highland Games too.
I just
Like all
got
of
to pause
that.
for a second. The Junos are Canada-wide.
Yeah.
And there are 2 Antigonish based.
Yeah.
There's
In a way-
something in the water, probably.
In one-
you know.
in
that's,
one-
that's crazy if you
Yeah.
think about it. This town
Yeah.
is miniature, and yet we've got 2 albums.
we are
in the
not
same-
miniature. Come on. Yeah, and
We're very global. Come
yeah,
on.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. That's
and
phenomenal.
the second question,
Special spot.
I just want to make sure that I had. So, Ukrainians of this, who are now here, or Syrians who are here, how do they get into the scene? They are now becoming part of our fabric. So they have their own traditions.
Yeah.
Is there space and an opportunity for them to become?
Definitely. Well, I know Mary Beth and I this summer played at one of the art fair shows at the park, and we were there, and this beautiful music and dancing of some of the immigrants from India, and
Right.
on display, and like that's what it is. That when we have the Highland Games in the summer, originally that was a time for the people of that culture to come together and celebrate their culture. So creating spaces where people can celebrate their own culture and display it is really what it is
Yeah,
about.
and-
Do you know what the national sports for Filipinos are? And
No.
somebody
I
might
know,
have
I know
to-
what it is.
right?
Karaoke?
Karaoke,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
and very much live and
Well, I tell you this,
alive in
I was out at Big Barn Little Farm at Susie's place
Yeah.
with a bunch of like folk musicians getting
Yeah.
together. And folk is a pretty big term, pretty
Oh.
global. And people were singing songs in a bunch of languages, like
Exactly.
Ukrainian songs, folk songs.
Yep.
It already exists in this town. Like you can just get together
Yep.
under the heading of folk
Yep.
and then get your
So
Syrians.
I am the ignorant one. Okay, gotcha.
As always, you're the problem,
I
Anuj.
know.
Well, that was one of the beautiful things when we used to have the session at the townhouse. No longer there. There were times when we would have people singing in Russian.
Exactly. yeah.
People who were just passing through town and happened to be there for dinner would say, "Oh, would you mind if I sang you something from my culture?" And that's the thing; it's all about sharing and
Heather, this is
experiencing.
beautiful. So
And
we
that-
interviewed somebody and released the episode on tourism.
Mm-hmm.
And how come this is not profiled as one of the key?
But I think it's what you're saying.
Oh, it
Heather, like
is. Yeah, okay.
there are some performance-y kind of things
Gotcha.
happening, but it's never been about performance.
No.
It's about
Right.
just hanging out at your house.
It's
And
about
that's what
hanging
this-
out and enjoying music and enjoying your people.
Yeah.
And that's probably the differentiator in Antigonish.
I'd say so. There is not as much of a performance-y kind of scene, I guess. I mean, you
No,
have
there's starting to be a little bit. Like we've had some at the
the Maples is a thing.
The Maples, yeah, that has started on Sunday afternoons. It was the group that used to be at the townhouse that started going there. At the Heritage
the museum.
Museum,
Yeah.
they
they
have
started had some
Barry's
shows.
got
I've
stuff.
played a few times there, and especially in the summers, I know Leona Williams has a Thursday night ceilidh where she has a lot of like the local musicians come together and do a show.
Yeah.
And I know, like you're saying, there's a group that started kind of like a slower session for helping people learn
Newbies
some of the
learn,
tunes. Yeah.
And
But and I know Rebecca Wild has
Yeah.
started a strings program where she teaches
that's right.
everything from classical through to Irish and many types of Celtic music and fiddle. So it's out there if you look.
And here the thing is, you are now Juno nominated.
Yeah.
You're on the map, right? And so, is it possible that because of that, people will come here because you are here, and maybe you're doing a performance or something, or they know?
Absolutely.
Oh.
I fear
Is that even a question?
I fear this is like this is a Piece by Chocolate scenario where they're going to be having busloads of people come up from Halifax.
I don't know about that.
So,
I don't know about that.
Because but in terms of performance and things, like you are now outperforming, I think, more often than you used
I
to
do,
be.
and I owe a lot of that to Mary Beth Carty.
Okay.
She, has been doing performance and touring and working as a professional musician for a long time. And she was really helpful in helping me get used to performing and
Okay.
playing in public, because she would get me to accompany her on my whistles or my bagpipes. And now, like for the album, obviously I got her to accompany on her guitar. But she's been so influential, and I really wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for her.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I have to ask this question.
Uh-oh.
We have budget on our mind.
Yes.
And we have cuts in arts and you being at the forefront at this point, what are your thinking on that?
I think that's really sad. I wish we were able to be going the way of some other programs that I know of. Another another thing that I've been thinking about lately is, when I was in high school, music was, band. And actually, since I was classical pianist, my music class was me teaching other people how to play piano. But in Scotland and in Ireland, they've really integrated the traditional music into their educational programs. Like at most schools, kids can learn to play bagpipes. You can actually take a degree and like even a PhD in traditional music and learning about the history of your own people's culture through music. And it's not on the fringes that you do it on your own because that's not real music. So I was hoping at some point we would start to see that happening here. Because I think nowadays, if I was graduating from high school, that's what I would have wanted to be able to do, would be to study traditional music of my people and help to keep that alive. And it doesn't seem that is something that is going to be
maybe not government funded,
not
but
government
I feel like
funded,
but this town has got such if anybody can pull it off, it would be Antigonish, I feel like.
But the larger point is that how can the state not recognize even the economic value, if not the social value of
so much of the tourism industry is based
Yeah.
upon the cultures, the music, the language, the people of the different areas of this province.
I want to hear from a JUNO nominee on this issue, essentially.
You now have clout.
I don't know. We'll see. But it makes me really feel really sad because, rather than focusing on, money generation of these, focusing on the importance of the culture and the history of the people.
You bet.
And ensuring that remains in memory is so important. And otherwise, we could be anywhere. Yeah. And why would somebody come visit a place with no heart and no soul that could be just anywhere in the world?
Well, you're a prime example in that it's been part of your life since the beginning, and your aspiration has never been economic. You're not there to make money.
No.
And then it culminated.
And I haven't.
And you still haven't. Yeah. No. But it culminated in this album, which is also now going to be your legacy. What a testament to it's exactly what you wanted. Yeah. And that's all simply because it's not economic driven at all, but it is the fabric of this community.
Exactly.
People like you.
The artists have to pay bills as well.
Yes. That's why I work another job.
That's you are a pharmacist.
But the thing too that, yes, it's not an economic thing. And, yes, I don't speak the language that 100 years ago my family did. I'm starting to learn little bits of it. But part of that culture was also the creativity. Mm-hmm. And that's, why, to me, some people might not think that my music should be considered traditional because it's stuff I all wrote. But the tradition was the creativity. The tradition was the people who wrote these songs, who wrote these tunes and passed them through. And if we don't continue the creativity and promoting people to be creative and to create art, then we're living in the past. And I really hope that, teaching people to be creative and not just learn others' music and just read the books of how things were before, but to document how life is today for their people, regardless of their background, is so important.
Yeah. And I would encourage all the trad musicians out there to have a listen to the album, pick a few of your favorite tunes, learn them, and so that they can become this living legacy. Like even more so than an album, imagine if one of or a few of your tunes just become part of the fabric of the trad scene for another 100, 200 years.
I think I might cry if I walked in somewhere and I heard somebody playing one of my tunes.
Yeah. Like totally unprompted. Yeah, imagine that. That is...
What was really neat, if anybody knows of Jerry Holland, who is an extremely well-known fiddler that lived in Cape Breton, an extremely prolific writer of tunes. He was good friends with local music teacher and player Stan Chapman, who's involved with those sessions. And one of his most well-known tunes is called Stan Chapman's Jig. And people in the trad world play it world over.
Yeah.
So one time when I was in Scotland, it was the very first time I went into one of these sessions that was an open session that it go to. I walked in, and what tune were they playing?
That one?
Stan Chapman's Jig.
That's cool.
Oh, wow.
So that's crazy. And Stan tells a story that he was playing at a session down in Cape Breton, and they were sitting around, and these people from Scotland had come in, and they were saying, oh, blah, 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 blah. We really wanted to come over to Cape Breton for the first time. We're really into Jerry Holland's music, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And, we've got these books that have all these music that this Paul Cranford has put together. And, let's play one of them. They started playing Stan Chapman's Jig. And Stan was sitting there beside Paul Cranford.
Okay.
Because it was Paul Cranford running the session, who's a man who spent his life, collecting the tunes written by people in Cape Breton and publishing them. And they said, "Hi, I'm Stan. Hi, I'm Paul." It's just, it is such a link worldwide when you have a tune that may not be 200 years old. It's modern, but it fits that world and it can travel. So, yeah.
Well, this is great. I guess
we do ask the last question. Anything that you would like to say?
Yeah, anything that we've missed about trad music or your album or the scene here in Antigonish that you wish people knew that they don't, maybe they get wrong, or you wish they had more info?
Well, I will apologize first, since I little ADHD and some of your questions I kind of went off topic and I didn't quite answer them.
I loved all the flavor.
Yeah, that's what podcast is all about.
ADHD is all about flavor.
Yeah. But just know that, it's for anybody. You don't have to be from that background to enjoy it. It should be celebrated and enjoyed by everyone. And come out to local musicians playing live.
Mm-hmm.
Because, sometimes, people are having shows or playing somewhere and not a lot of people come, and not a lot of people know about what's going on in Antigonish, and they think of trad music as something that's only in Cape Breton.
And I'll tell you something on that, that I think, at least from a newcomer point of view, that I often think about, is there is a mental barrier for newcomers. How they don't know whether they can participate, how to understand, how to even be in the same space and not know how to begin to understand that music. So a bridge building probably needs to happen where the non-artists can feel comfortable in those spaces.
Well, most artists I know around here would be very open to people approaching and chatting and asking. And I will say, again, with the whole global and mismatch of things, there is so much in the trad world worldwide, and starting a bit more here, where it's a mixture of cultures coming together to make beautiful sounds. There's actually, there's a few really cool groups. Salsa Celtica, which is a band that combines traditional Celtic music with I think mostly if it's based in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that they've got the Afro-Celt sound system, which is a mixture of Celtic and African artists. There's amazing things in combining cultures. And we have such an opportunity here in Antigonish with the university, with the Cody Institute, with the music program at St. Avex. There's so much jazz influence Celtic now that there's so much opportunity for different musicians to work together to create their own sound.
Yeah, and in Ireland and Scotland as well, people coming in from other places, other musical traditions, joining in is totally normal, accepted, and they
100%.
love it. I mean, if you look at some of the instruments, like the banjo, the mandolin, the bouzouki, these are all bouzouki's from Greece. It just popped up suddenly in the 60s. Now it's part of the tradition.
Some people don't even realize that it's not an Irish traditional musical instrument.
These are all artificial barriers that we can break.
And there's never been a music scene that is more into people randomly showing. So if you show up, bring a tabla or something, pop by, start playing.
Thank you. Wow.
Yeah.
Such an amazing...
And great luck. And best of luck. I mean, break a leg. I'm not sure what you say to win a Juno.
I don't know. Well, I'm just excited to be able to go and see all the fancy people and do lots of people watching.
But you are one of those fancy people now.
You're now fancy.
I know.
But, up against Cassie and Maggie are, full-time professional musicians. So is Morgan Toney. And the other nominees are well-established. I'm just kind of still a bit in shock that I get to go.
But which makes it all the more amazing, frankly, that you're a full-time pharmacist, also, by the way, JUNO-nominated musician. That is just phenomenal.
And we'll probably have to reverse that introduction.
Yeah, full-time. You are a JUNO-nominated artist. You do pharmacy on the side.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Most people, I won't use that joke, but I sometimes will use the joke that most people do music full-time and sell drugs on the side, and I do the opposite. You probably need to cut
well
that.
said.
Phenomenal.
On that note,
Thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Antigonish. If you like the podcast, Don't hesitate to subscribe. Just go to letstalkantigonish.ca and click. Voila! You'll receive new episodes right in your email inbox.
This podcast is a labor of love. Please consider making a contribution, small or large, maybe a monthly subscription.
A thank you to all of our supporters and subscribers, especially our paid subscribers through the Substack. You are really helping us to keep this podcast going, and we look forward to expanding it in the future. Let's talk, Antigonish.